All right. Hey, everybody. This is Kevin Davidovich from Coach Me Plus, and you're listening to the Coach Me Plus Applied Sports Science podcast. This is episode number 7. Today we have Dr. Brian Thompson from Springfield College. For those who don't know, Springfield College is world-renowned for, pumping out a large number of quality strength conditioning coaches over the past couple of decades. So it was really good to actually talk to the guy who's the head of the program over there now. We discuss the importance of athlete monitoring and compliance, working with interns, GAs, and student athletes, and of course the GA program at Springfield, which is, it's just top quality. A little bit about nutrition, and of course the importance of leadership skills, which seems to get lost sometimes when we really get into discussions about science and everything else like that. It does get back to the basics. For those who listen to the podcast, you might have noticed a gap in September. It's because everybody was getting back into their offices and back with their teams, but we do have a bunch of guests lined up for the next couple of months, so you'll be hearing more from us. For those who have not subscribed to the newsletter, I recommend that you do so. Go to coachmeplus.com and click subscribe. It's in the top right corner, and you're going to get your inbox filled with good information. I promise we're not going to hit you with spam or anything else like that. It's really just going to be the latest on applied sports science and more. So without further ado, Dr. Brian Thompson. Thanks. We're live. So we've got Dr. Brian Thompson from Springfield College on the podcast here. Say hi, Brian.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And thanks for doing this. It's funny, like the past couple of weeks, we usually do like a podcast every 2 weeks or so. And the problem over the past couple of weeks is you get everybody in college has their crazy schedule going on. Everybody in the pros has their. What's your schedule been like the past couple of weeks?
Well, with getting all the teams in and getting their screens done and any time of preseason testing, it's just been crazy. This is probably the busiest time of the year. This first, 4 weeks of classes, and then really the last 4 weeks of classes are busy times as far as getting everybody through. We do an FMS with everyone. Getting all that done, and then the preseason physicals we participate in that with all of our athletes, with our athletic training staff, and then at the end of the year, kind of re-screening and retesting, and obviously we do our weight room testing and that type of field test, that kind of thing too. So we're about our second week of having everybody going on their programs right now.
Cool, very cool. So you guys are actually doing corrective stuff based on the FMS.
Yes, we do. We incorporate a lot of it in different ways. We try to look at a general, if we see any general problems. Mm-hmm. If we look at a team, if I see something like a wrestling, for example, they've got some shoulder mobility issues. They've got some asymmetries on the inline lunge. So we'll take a look at those and try to work some correctives into our movement prep warm-up program. Yep. And then I also will like to do a lot of pairing. So if I'm doing we pair a lot of exercise. So anytime I've got any type of a horizontal push or vertical push, upper body, mm-hmm. they're going to be doing some type of T-spine or shoulder mobility. Mm-hmm. And anytime I do like a squat or a lower body push, they're going to do an ankle mobility. Yep. And to do a lower body pull like a deadlift, they're going to be doing a hip mobility with that. So really try to work based on what we've got. We do some individual stuff if we need it, but a lot of it is addressing it kind of as a team.
Cool. And obviously you guys are known as the factory of strength conditioning coaches. So how many, you got, you probably have the benefit that not a lot of people have, where it's not just you doing 600, or how many athletes do you have there?
We have a little bit over 700 athletes.
Yeah, so you got 700 athletes. It's not just you. You have an army of guys there.
Well, yeah, we're lucky. I've got several grad assistants, and
yep.
It can help out in various ways. And then interns. Right now I've got 8 interns as well. So we've got a staff of about 16 or 17 that we can use to do our screening and that kind of thing. And we always try to keep that one. I like to keep a 1-to-12 ratio of coach to athletes.
That's a really good ratio.
Which is we're very fortunate to be able to do at this level, especially. Yeah, and it's incredible. Because of the grad program and the athletics being so integrated.
So I mean, you got a 1-to-12 ratio. I mean, the kids gotta love it, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I think most of the time they love it. Sometimes they feel like they can't get away with anything, which we don't want them to get away with anything. So.
So, I mean, for somebody who's never heard of Springfield, I mean, if you're in this space, obviously you've heard of it. You know, it's got a reputation of just putting out the best names. You look at the NFL, you look at Major League Baseball. I mean, there's just tons of guys that are active right now, or that have been legends in the field that have gone through Springfield. So, you know, I'm somebody who just came across this podcast. Maybe I'm, one of the UK guys or one of the Australian guys who've, come across it because we're dealing with a lot of the sports scientists. Explain a little bit like how this tradition or how this factory of strength conditioning coaches got started there, and how you've been able to carry that forward.
Well, I think just the reputation we've had at Springfield College was always kind of a physical education. Mm-hmm. And going back to the days of like Mike Boysick was here and Michael Boyle. And Mike Boyle gives a story about he goes into his dorm and his RA is Mike Boysick. So you have just that you see those guys that have gone on to be so successful in the field. And you look at Rusty Jones and, John Toreen, and just I know I'm going to leave out a lot of people, but those guys that really went to high levels and did really well with strength and conditioning, and very proud to be from Springfield College. And that's one thing that it really took me. I mean, I came here, I'd been at Ball State University, and I'd been at the University of Illinois. And I came in here in 1998 and think, okay, it's a small school. I'll work here for a few years, get some more experience, move up to a bigger school. Yeah. And I've had a lot of opportunities, but I never want to leave. It's just that tradition that they have, and the alumni and the support. And I know I can call any alum from here, and they'll answer any question I have. If I need help with an intern, get an intern there and that kind of thing. So I think it's just kind of started with just people's love of training. Yeah. And it kind of has gone in from there. Once the profession really got going, we started a grad program in 1998, which was the year I got here. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Margaret Jones started it. She's moved on to other program, and I took it over several years ago, and just continued to keep it rolling, and just thinking of those alums. Yeah. And the standard I have to hold the students to make sure they're going to go out and be quality strength coaches. So I mean, it's just one of these things that's just kind of developed. We found our niche in the undergraduate program. We got a wonderful undergraduate program now in exercise science. They're putting out a lot of great coaches as well. So you got, when you first started there, you guys first started the grad program. What would you say has changed? And it's not, 1998 seems like a long time ago, but if you think about any profession, it's not really that long ago. But I'm sure it's accelerated and changed a lot. Like, what have you seen from the time that you walked in the doors to now, where it's, you would say the biggest change has come along? Well, I mean, a lot of it is just the science and technology. I mean, we started like even when I got into strength and conditioning almost 30 years ago, it was like if you big and strong, like to lift weights, you could be a strength coach. It was kind of the gym rats. Yeah. That just never wanted to leave the weight room. And now we still have that. We still have people that want to be in the weight room all the time, but they're reading articles constantly. They're on top of it. I mean, just the way that the technology and everything. I mean, I start every class I have in the morning, and I'm very fortunate to be teaching in the morning. So I've got the grad students in the morning, and in the afternoon we're all in the weight room. So I start every class. What did you learn since last class? So what did you learn in the last 24 hours to make you a better strength coach? And they are on top of that. I mean, and it keeps me, I go first. So it keeps me having to read a lot to keep up with them. So I think that's the biggest part of it is I've got to continue to learn so I can continue to educate them and stay on top of whatever, the latest trend is or articles. And it's just, obviously the internet, it makes it so much easier to find stuff. And, but I find the students challenge me a lot more than they used to find new things and that kind of thing. So, the natural evolution that if technology is pushing the program and students are pushing the program, how do you see your program evolving over, let's say the next 5 years? Well, I mean, I think it's continuing with what the needs of the field are,
Yep.
and staying up on everything. And one thing I'm big about, and I feel like I've heard other coaches talk about this, just a pendulum in strength and conditioning. Something new will come out. Everybody will jump on that and want to do that, and then it starts to swing back towards the middle. And what I try to do is kind of stay in that middle ground and cover, okay, these are the things, this is our traditional, this is what we've done that's worked, this is why they work. Go a lot into evidence-based. And then these are the new things, and let's look at those. And I think teaching the students to analyze that, I'm very big on, as far as what I consider evidence-based coaching. So you've got the research side of it. It's backed by research. That's one component.
Yeah.
It's physiological. Does it make physiological sense? Is the science there? Maybe it's not, peer-reviewed research, but does the science make sense?
Sure.
And then also your coaching experience. What have you learned? What are you able to understand that seems to work? And then the athletes. What do the athletes seem to like? I think that's part of it as well.
Sure.
So I think those four components, I spend a lot of time teaching that. And I think with that model, we can kind of adapt to the times as they change. One thing, at least with the athletes, we're doing a lot more on Instagram and Snapchat. I'm still learning that stuff. Of course, I have a 14-year-old daughter to keep me up to date on that. But yeah, just getting the stuff out there. And I see that we're going to evolve more with continuing with find the best way to reach the athletes. We're doing a lot more with nutrition now. That's a big thing, too, that I think at the Division III level where I am, obviously, you don't have the resources, but been very fortunate to have some GAs with background in nutrition. So that's the next, I think the next thing we're focusing on as well.
So there's you brought up a couple of points. First, let me ask you, so there's new stuff coming up all the time, and like you said, it's like this pendulum that goes back and forth, and we see it too. Like you push forward, it goes a little bit too far, and then you bring stuff back, and you're kind of advancing the field, but at like a burst, 2 step forward, 1 step back, 2 step forward, 1 step back.
Yeah.
So you end up with a lot of empirical based versus evidence based technology that comes out.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, this is the new whatsy wig wearable velocity pulley thing. Where do you begin to play with that line between the difference between that empirical and the evidence-based technology that's being pushed at you, and at what point do you look at it and just go, no, that's complete crap, or no, that requires some true research and studies, and I'm gonna maybe even do that myself?
Well, it's interesting. I'm very big on go to the source. So if someone came up with something, so if you want to learn PRI, go to a PRI course. Don't just take what you find online or what other people are talking about. When it came to the FMS, I remember, the FMS has been around a while. Published, I can't remember when it was first published, in early 2000 in, I think, high performance training. Mm-hmm. And when I started to look at it, I said, okay, I'm gonna contact Gray Cook. And, find a contact Gray Cook, contact Lee Burton. Yeah. Learn what they came up with. And I think that's, with all this technology going to the source. Just this morning I had a group, the RQX, which is a new system that's coming out that as far as different band resistances, it's a machine you can hook up different tubes with kind of a rotating resistance and hook up all kinds of different planes. Really interesting. And one of our alums is involved with it, Seth Foreman, and another individual, Eric Kay.
Instead of like a pneumatic resistance or a plate resistance?
It would looks like a pneumatic too, but it's bands within it, so you can twist, and it's all based on different resistance bands.
I hadn't seen that.
So, they want some feedback, so we had them on campus. All right, explain to us, what are you trying to do with this? What the pros and cons, that kind of thing. So I think going to the source is the big thing with me. Find out. Don't learn something from someone that read something about. Learn something from the individuals that created it. And so I think that's big in my assessment of different things. Like with the FMS, I took time. I talked to Gray Cook. I talked to Lee Burton. I talked to John Tureen. Like, okay, I really like what's behind this. I like the thought process behind it. And so we started using that. And the same thing, Mike Boyle, he's an alum. He comes on campus all the time. So I try to just get in front of the coaches. If we're talking about something like velocity-based training or APRE, we did a FaceTime chat with Brian Mann. So try to get, and same thing Cal Dietz with triphasic training. So go to the source and try to learn their rationale and reasoning behind it. And I think to me that gives you a better understanding of the whole process.
So if you had, you had unlimited resources, unlimited time, unlimited budget, bodies, whatever it is, and you had all these stacks of new stuff coming at you, what would be on your wish list of something that you'd want to actually take on and prove with evidence-based, research?
That's a good question. I don't know if off the cuff as far as that. One thing I was just talking this morning with the group from RQX about they're doing some stuff with wireless EMGs. That's something we don't have here. I think if we had that system, and I actually just talked to my department chair about trying to get something like that soon, but just open up a lot of opportunity with all these. With anything new, with any programs or whatever, I want to see what's actually working as far as is it actually increasing glute activation or whatever you may be looking for in certain positions. So I would like just access to do more research. We do have a nice human performance lab here.
Yeah, it's great.
We've got a lab set up. Yeah, a strength lab set up, but just trying to expand that. So I don't know if I could say right now any one technique. But that I would research, but I just kind of like to be able to look, I guess, more at activation. If I had to pick a kind of a category, it'd be interesting with PRI. I'm still learning about that. Actually, one of my assistants is going up to Vermont this weekend for a clinic, and he's going to come back and we're going to talk about that. Do a little more research on that to understand how that would fit into our setting. And I'm always looking at how we can use anything out there that's going to help our athletes and kind of adapt it to what we have here.
So it sounds like, the things that you would be, and I'm just trying to understand it, some of the methodologies and some of the ways to be able to test that with foundational, like you said, wireless EMG, for instance, as a way to have a foundational way to actually look at the data. Is that what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think one of the things with strength and conditioning is that the coaches are so far, ahead of some of the research. I mean, it's very difficult to get a peer-reviewed article published.
Yeah.
So I think, and so obviously it's always going to be a little behind the coaches that are out there trying to get their athletes to perform better. So I think anything you have technology-wise that can help you as a coach to really quantify what you have and give you some more of that evidence that it's going to work is going to help.
What we see a lot of technology companies like trying to get the Cal Dietz's, and I'm not saying Cal specifically, but like those guys of the world to help them do the research to validate their tech.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys feel the pressure of getting all, especially with you being near Boston, a lot of tech companies being there saying, "Hey man, I got some cool stuff. I want you to please help me validate this." Like, do you guys feel that pressure at all?
Not really. We haven't. I mean, honestly, we haven't had a lot of that happen. We've gotten involved a little bit with, looking at some different areas that need to be looked at. Like Coach Mike Gittleson, who used to be at the University of Michigan, he's been on campus several times, and that's instigated some thesis testing we've done, looking at concussions and neck strength and that type of thing. And just looking at some of the other equipment, like I mentioned a couple times now, the RQX, and looking at what we can do with that, and getting a lot of feedback on some equipment. But I don't think I feel a lot of pressure.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of stuff I'd like to do that we just don't have. It's just tough. I mean, we do have students doing thesis, but it's tough to really set up all the projects you'd like to do, because there's so many new and cool things out in the field of strength and conditioning that sometimes it can be a little overwhelming. What do I use? What do I try out next, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's cool. So that was so you were mentioning something else that I want to kind of bring back, and that's nutrition, because I think it's highly overlooked in a lot of discussions that come out about sports science and technology and everything else like that. We get these waves of the conversation of the month, and for the past couple of months it's been sleep, and then previous months before that it was getting subjective fatigue. Before that it was getting subjective load values, and then you just get into these waves of whatever the flavor is of the month. But I haven't heard nutrition come out in a long time. And we had Rusty over here, thanks to Coach McKenney. So Coach Jones comes in, and we're just discussing things and going through, and his entire conversation was about nothing but nutrition. And like, we spent 2 hours talking about nutrition, and I was just like, I never would have expected that from an old school strength coach like Rusty Jones, but that's what the conversation was about. So you bring it up again, and I'm sitting here going, it seems to be a big gap in a lot of what's going on.
Well, I think it's something that, it's been overlooked, or I think, I don't know, different levels, but especially at this level, I think we could do more, and we're trying to do more. And it's not really a high technology area. One of the things I just
food.
I've got a card that we're giving all our athletes. We talk about the four R's to recovery: rehydrate, replenish, rest, and repair. And just trying to get some basic stuff across to our athletes. We've talked about eat, sleep, rehydrate, with just some basic information, trying to teach them how to eat. There's so much information out there on nutrition and dietary, with low carb, low fat, whatever it may be.
Yep.
And then also them understanding, well, maybe low carb works for general population, but will it work for athletes? And, just trying to help them sort through everything that's out there and understand what their body needs even for their specific sport.
Yeah.
So we started up, we do meetings with all the teams, trying what are their needs specific to that. Do some cooking classes we're getting ready to start. We've done some grocery trips in the past to help athletes understand how to shop. We really, something we learned is they have no idea what to do in a grocery store, what to buy.
Right.
And then when they buy it, they have no idea what to do with it when they get home. So they're trying to teach them to understand that, to make the better choices. And then even take them over to our dining services and, kind of an eat this, not that kind of thing.
Yeah.
These are your choices, make these choices. These are the better choices that you have. So we will post the menus every morning on Snapchat or Instagram, so the athletes have access to that, so they can think ahead and plan ahead before they go over to the dining hall. And if they don't have a lot of time, that gives them a better idea of what they need to do once they get there. But also, like, we use the Coach Me Plus for our recovery sheet.
Yeah.
Get the athletes thinking about, did you eat a balanced meal? Did you get your for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Did you get that pre-lift or pre-practice snack, and that post-lift, post-practice snack? Are you getting properly hydrated? Checking your urine color, those types of things. We want it to always really be on their mind, so it just becomes automatic.
I guess it's interesting because I can't think of anything else in athletics or in what you deal with young athletes coming in. If they're coming in and they're 17, 18 years old, 19 years old, you have 19 years of marketing, food marketing, engineering, and education that you need to de-educate and then reinstill good information in on them. So they've been hit with McDonald's commercials on and diet commercials and the latest fad and books, and I mean, nothing hits the general population more than bad diet information, and you're stuck with all of that baggage. So how do you what's the first thing you try to hit them with to kind of de-educate them on the bad stuff?
Well, I think one of the big things is we find our athletes just don't eat enough. And then what they eat is probably not necessarily what they need. Mm-hmm. So just, it's funny, when I first started doing the recovery sheet, one of the athletes came up to me and was like, oh yeah, that's great because it reminds me to eat. And I hadn't really thought about that they needed reminded to eat. But if they're getting up and they got practice, they've got lift, they've got their classes, a lot of them work on campus jobs, they're not on scholarship here. Yeah. So they do need to be reminded to eat. So one of the biggest things we do is get them, okay, you need to eat regularly. We don't want you to come in the lift It's after practice at 6 o'clock, and the only thing you've had all day is a bagel at breakfast. So that's the first thing we do is remind them, that they do need to eat, and then we get in. Okay, and this is what you need to eat when you need to eat it, kind of thing.
So that's for the student athletes. Now you've got your grad program kids who are, they're the ones that are chomping at the bit to start doing research and things like that. Are they getting into more detailed levels of nutritional research? Like, do you have anything going on that's interesting on that side?
Well, we're getting a couple studies started looking at nutrition. In our program, we haven't done a lot. In our doctoral program in exercise physiology, they've done some nutritional programs looking at various types of diets. They take a sports nutrition course here that kind of get their interest peaked, and then a lot of them will go in and either get the ISSN certification or the precision nutrition certification on their own.
Yep.
But as far as the research, we haven't done a lot just looking at the nutrition. Most of it is more performance based.
Okay, interesting. I guess it's again, it's one of those topics where it seems to be one of the absolute bases of the pyramid, but doesn't get discussed as such.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with that. It's just, I think, we're jumping on all the new things too. I think that everybody's focusing on the new things, and some of the old basics sometimes get forgotten.
Yeah, everybody's got some new wearable they want to talk about first.
Yeah.
And it's funny, from our standpoint, we partner with so many different technologies and companies and things like that, and we've been in discussions with a few nutrition companies. So I've tried every nutrition tracker out there, and from everything from super complex micro level and macro level. I had a half a banana with my thing, and just adding everything up so I can get a full breakdown, to something as simple as like take a picture. What's what would be the quickest tip to say, think about it in this most simple sense and just go?
Honestly, that'd be, I don't know if I could do justice to that question. It'd be more for a sports nutritionist.
Yeah.
And what I let her, I kind of have handed that completely over to her. I know.
It's a good delegator.
Yeah. So obviously, I can't do everything. So I do spend a lot of time working with kind of how I can help her to get access to the athletes.
Yeah.
And I spend a lot of time. We do the pictures. Take a picture of your of your meal and post it to Instagram. So try to find that healthy meal. I know she spends a lot of time educating them about carbohydrates, the proper type of carbohydrates they need, and just on this card here. We have. You can't see this very well, but
totally
we just have thousands of these printed up that we give to all our athletes.
If you hold it up like right here, you can totally see that.
Yeah, this.
To the camera, to your other direction. There we go.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
Back up a little bit, and
there we go. There's the front, and then on the back we actually have what their plate should look like.
Oh, that's awesome.
An example of how they should divide up between their their grains, their meats. So just trying to simplify it like that. So our view is they're going to pull this out and look at their plate and see, okay, does it match up to what my meal is of the day?
Super simple.
What I'm trying to do. So I'd say that's probably the most basic thing that we can teach them. The other big thing I think is just sleep, and I've been reading a lot on sleep lately. That's kind of I picked something to really dive into every semester. But as far as the sleeping, our athletes always report they're getting plenty of sleep, but I don't know if they're getting the proper sleep. Are they are they getting into the right sleep cycles, or that can be affected? I'm still learning about as far as the blue light, and I know I'm guilty of this. I probably spend at least an hour reading on my Kindle every night before I go to bed. Is that the best way to do it? Am I able to? Is that affecting my sleep patterns? And I know here, as far as the lighting and that type of thing, living in a residence hall, sometimes that may not be the most conducive to proper sleep. So I think that's the next thing we're going to really delve into, is making sure they're trying to find out if they're getting better sleep and start doing some within the nutrition presentations, talk about sleep a little bit.
Yeah, with sleep, it's really about the, sleep hygiene, right? Like, do you have your lights off and the blue light and everything else like that? And, I think it might have been Carl Valley who was on, but we were talking about one of the dirty secrets with, like, my phone dims, and I have the same thing on my laptop, so the laptop dims, and it gives me, like, the different yellow color and everything else like that, but it's still being emitted by an LED that has blue light behind it. So you're still getting that waveform in your eyes, and it still actually affects your sleep patterns. And even last night, I was up in my bed. The wife goes to sleep. I'm on my laptop working, and do that until I zone out. It's definitely affecting sleep quality.
Well, I know, and I started just recently. I went to actually a library book sale and picked up a bunch of paperback books or just hardback, just paper books. And it almost, it's funny. I've got so used to electronic, it just feels weird to hold a book in my hands. And so it is something I think some of the technology gets us in trouble a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a audiobook guy. That's the only way I actually get it in. So, you mentioned that you're taking subjective questionnaires from your athletes. What other type of information are you asking these guys on a regular basis?
Well, I mean, I guess not formally, but we try to get a gauge of how they're feeling, and we tried some different scales. Okay, how do you feel today? A 1 to 5. We don't have heart rate variability, capabilities or anything like that. And we've even gone with a lot of our programming, instead of a specific percentage, give them a range, for how they're feeling. And you try to monitor that on their card a little bit, keep track. Good communication with the sport coaches, too, is the big thing. And really, not that we didn't communicate well, but now we're really trying to focus on that, if not every day, 2-3 times a week, talk to the coach, find out exactly what they're doing in practice. And I think it's a little different, once again, a Division III school versus Division I, where you work closely with those coaches. Yeah. Our coaches kind of turn the athletes over to us and trust whatever we're doing. So they're not as involved, but we're trying to get that a little bit more so we can monitor that stress. Yeah. And that's the biggest, probably the biggest thing we're doing. Other than that, we've done some stuff looking at percentage vertical jump decreases, and that's one thing I'm doing a little bit more now. Recording the vertical jump throughout the season to look for those decreases. I know a lot of people have done that. We've even tried with hand grip. Some of the research indicates hand grip can somewhat represent central nervous system fatigue, and the vertical jump seems to work a little bit better. The hand grip, everybody was so competitive that I get someone's hand grip. Well, what'd you get? Let me try it again. So it's the vertical jump. It seems a little less. We've had a little more success with that.
With the subjective stuff, so you've got the benefit of two things. One, you've got athletes from freshman all the way through senior year, and two, you've got a research-based mindset so that you can actually, like you said, test out different language, test out different scales. Do you go with the Borg scale? Do you go with button 1 through 5, like whatever it is that you're doing? So have you seen what I would say like a compliance fatigue as athletes go through the process with you from start, from freshmen all the way through seniors, or do you, what's been your experience in dealing with that?
Well, as far as them compliance and coming in and working in the program, or
well, just compliance with if I'm I'll run two different cases by you. One is that I'm one athlete. I'm here for 4 years. The entire time I'm here, I'm seeing the same question over and over and over again. So I'm just going to keep hitting the middle.
Okay.
Or circling the middle. Or the other, scenario is, you guys have mixed it up over time, and that freshness has kept the athlete engaged.
Okay, I see what you mean. Yeah. Well, I think one of the reasons we only have done the one recovery scale so far, consistently with all our athletes, is because we don't want to overwhelm them with scales. Mm-hmm. So what I've done is kind of then left it up to our coaches if they want to do, my assistant coaches if they want to do something else. But I told them I only want maybe one, if they're going to do one additional would be about the limit. I don't want the athletes to run in that. They get so sick of surveys and this and that they have to constantly constantly, pull out their phones or fill out these things at the end of every lift or before every lift. And I read an article, I think it was by Brian Mann recently, talked about with all the technology, we forget about coaching. And I think sometimes sometimes that does happen. The technology is wonderful, and we've got to use it to complement what we do.
Yeah.
But just getting to know your athletes, and I know with every team I work with, you know that athlete that if they're fatigued, then everyone else is going to be fatigued. You guys I try to teach my assistants, identify those athletes that you can really trust and are really going to be a good representative of what the other team's feeling. Every team has the guy that anytime you ask him how he's feeling horrible. And then every team has the guy that if he's crawling into the weight room, he says he feels great. So I think just finding that person that you can really gauge, and just learning to know your athletes. I can tell when they walk in how they're feeling. After I've worked with them for a few weeks. Yeah. So I think that's the big part of it to then just kind of adjust based on what you see.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not, what's the point of technology if it's not enhancing your relationship with the athlete, right?
Yeah. That's a great point. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we see that all the time where it's just like, no, I got a budget and now I'm buying all this cool tech and we've got everything. We're going to hook up all the monitors and Bluetooths and everything else like that. And guys are running around with all these whiz-bang sensors, and then you got two guys behind a laptop capturing all the data, and they know less about their athlete than they did before. When they actually talk to them. So with, in your experience, what have been the things that you guys have tried that has gotten like the best reaction or the best engagement with an athlete?
Well, I think, a couple things we've done is with the recovery sheet. I think that works really well. They seem to really like that, and they seem pretty compliant in doing that. Yeah. A couple other things we're doing with one of my assistants came up with this with basketball, and at the end of every lift, he's giving them a grade on how he thought they perceived how he perceived they were working on that lift.
The old gold star method.
Yeah. It's just if they didn't do very well, then they were going to come back and work harder. But then also, okay, if you see a lift, all right, that was a C lift. Try to find out why, what's going on, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's something we seem to have some luck with, and then just like I said, just going back to all right, how are you guys feeling today? What did you just do in practice? And that the biggest problems I think when they come from practice. Mm-hmm. What did you do? We may have an idea of what they're supposed to do. Maybe did that change, that type of thing. So I guess what's worked best is just a recovery sheet, just getting them to think about that, but then just trying to mix it up with some other things if you can.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting with the recovery sheet. Like, if you're actually doing it on paper, like I have to like hand it to you, right? And then that creates instant communication. You mentioned I don't want to plug our system, but you mentioned CoachMate Plus. We've got the monitors, and if the monitor is telling you something's going on, again, you've got that re-engagement. So it's a point. It's a point that everybody comes back to, where it's like, again, like that nutritional foundational thing, the relationship foundational piece. People are always kind of like, oh yeah, like I have to go back to relationship management. And it's like, why do we have to think that we have to keep coming back to that? Shouldn't that always be a foundation?
Yeah. No, I agree. Just getting to know your athletes. And when we did go to the electronic versus the paper, that's something that I thought about. Yeah. That we don't have that interaction. When we take a look at it and you're going on a scale from 0 to 20 and you want them in that 17 to 16 to 20 range or whatever, and they've got a 10, it's like, okay, what's wrong here? You didn't sleep very well this week. You didn't eat very well. And then that starts a conversation, and okay, they're, your PT major, they had finals, they had a clinical exam or something like that. And, that's a big part of it, but just, you're trying to know every athlete. It's difficult here with 700 athletes, trying to know what all their majors are, and getting an idea of what's going on with them. But trying to, I guess, have that understanding of each one of them. I try to. One thing I heard years ago, the person that told me was Barry Weinberg, who was medical director with the St. Louis Cardinals back then, a Springfield alum, and he said he'd gotten this from someone else. Is like, say something to every athlete every single day. and interact with them in some way. So I don't walk by an athlete without saying, hello, how you doing, or asking them about, if I know their major, ask them about their major, or go, we've got, whether they're a Red Sox fan or a Yankee fan or whatever it may be. And, Patriots, I grew up in Indiana, so I'm a Colts fan. So a lot the Patriots fans love to give me a hard time out here. So just finding some way to interact with your athlete, getting that personal side of it. And from then, just that interaction, that opens up to so much more that you can tell, are they fatigued, or, are they just a little off that day? They and then you can, dive in a little deeper and find out what's going on.
Yeah, I don't know if you get that feeling like we get that when I have, an intern who comes in and starts with us. I almost forget sometimes the impact that I had as, a young intern coming in, and somebody, who was above me, brought me in and communicated with me in a certain way. And I always have to reset the communication, clock to be like, oh, remember what that kid felt, remember what you felt like when you were at that age. And, I got Doc Brian coming in, and he, big man, and this and that. And he said hi to me, and he asked me how my day was. And that might just, be the connection that opens him up to tell you, by the way, coach, or, I'm feeling this, or, this is bothering me, or why are we doing this again? And, might open a line of communication that otherwise might not have happened because they wouldn't feel the way, they might not have felt the way to approach you, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's funny because I'm just talking to one of my grad assistants about this. Who's got some freshmen that are, now I feel like 4 weeks in, the freshmen are starting to lose a little bit of that deer in the headlights look.
Yeah.
And get with everything you tell them. And you were just talking about, okay, I wish I was a freshman over 30 years ago. So trying to remember, okay, what it was like back then. You are terrified, and just and one thing I'm trying to be cognizant of is if someone does have some, when we screen them, they do have some issues, trying to not separate them from the team too much, for everybody else what they're doing. But I think that what you mentioned, that's the psychological aspect of it is a big thing that plays a role in them gaining their trust and that type of thing.
No, I totally believe in that. Growth through communication is definitely the best way to handle that. We only got a little bit of time left here, and I wanted to hit back on your grad program. We've got the strength conditioning factory, Springfield College. Kids are coming out, but we've got a lot of push in the industry now to bring in sports scientists with experience in UK rugby or Australian rules football or things like that. And our strength coaches coming out of the North American institutions might not have that same experience. So now they have to, they're going head to head against these guys. So what can we do better as development programs and as the position that you're in, what can we do better to help these guys be in better position to be in these sports science style positions?
Well, and I think just understanding the science, and I think one thing I'm trying to continually update our curriculum so they understand more of that sports science side of it. Whether we have the technology here or bringing someone in that can teach them about the technology, learn about that aspect of it. But I still, the way I teach our students, or my philosophy to developing strength coaches is, three components. You have the science part, and, that's going to be ever changing with the technology, and that's going to affect that. And then the applications, you can, as far as, I'm very big on, I want them to be able to hop up on a platform, demonstrate a clean. I still do that now after being in the field for almost 30 years. Demonstrate the exercises. So I take them through everything. I have them actually write training programs for themselves when they first get here. So in their first semester here, every 3 weeks, they turn in their own training program to me. So we talk about what they're doing. I'm very big on trying programs before you implement them to athletes. I hear Dan John talk a lot about this. Write a program, try it out, see how it feels, and then give it to your athletes. But then I think the part that we're missing sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes with the sports science approach, is that coaching aspect.
Yep.
And I get students that come in, they're brilliant, they train like maniacs, but you stick them in front of a group of athletes, they don't know what to do. Mm-hmm. So I spent a lot of time with that leadership aspect. In my internship course, which all students take when they get here, they're in the weight room, every day with me, but they have to read a sport coaching book, a strength coach book, a nutrition book, and a leadership book. And really how all those go into developing their strength and conditioning principles and their strength and conditioning philosophy. So I think that's the part where in our educational programs that we have here, just teaching them how to coach, how to work with 130 football players, and then turn around and work with maybe 10 cross-country runners or whatever it may be. Just being able to adapt your coaching style and reach every athlete. Each team seems to have a different personality, and each team seems to respond a little bit differently. Just like when we're teaching in the classroom, different learning styles. But I think each team responds a little bit differently to different coaching styles. And I think as long as you're training coaches to be able to adapt to that, they're always going to be successful in the field.
Yeah, and I think we feel that strength coming from the programs that we have here in the States. I was in an NHL team yesterday, and we had after we got done discussing our some of the things that we're doing with them, basically had like a 4-hour hangout with an Australian sports science guy, a North American sports science guy, a North American strength coach, and a UK just applied sports scientist who does nothing but numbers. And it turned into this huge roundtable of, good luck finding the guy who can take you through the clean progression, can command the room in a leadership sense, can sit behind the data, analyze it, and deal with it, and then apply the knowledge that he's gained to fine-tune his athletes and go along. There's like 3 guys on the planet that can do that. Yeah. So then you end up with a blend of a nerd who can sit behind a computer, a strength coach who can coach, deal with relationships and things like that, and then maybe somebody who can politic through the organization. But not every organization can have 3 or 4 people. So if you had to focus on we know that the strengths coming out of our programs are progressions, coaching ability, training ability, leadership skills, and things like that. Mm-hmm. Where would we better improve ourselves as coaches to at least be able to communicate and dabble in these other things that are happening now?
Well, and I think I briefly touched on. I'm trying to integrate more and more technology. Mm-hmm. And getting the students exposed to as much of that as possible. Mm-hmm. So if they learn about GPS, they're learning about, heart rate variability, they're learning, I can't even say keep up with all the different
velocity-based training,
all the technology, velocity-based training, all the different technology involved with that, the heart rate monitors. Just try to get them as much exposure to that. So I guess put them in a position where they know how to learn, I guess would be another part of it. Get them in the habit of being lifelong learners, going out there and looking for things. Another thing we do, every 2 weeks they come into class, I call my research article analysis, and they go out and get 2 articles, one peer-reviewed, one non-peer-reviewed. So I was talking about before, a lot of the coaches are ahead of a lot of the research because of the difficulty in getting research published. Yeah. So when we start to analyze that, so I just try to create those habits that hopefully they're going to continue forever, and that's going to help them always be prepared for whatever is coming next.
Yeah, and that's brilliant. I don't think a lot of people think about it in a research-based approach, right? Like you said, the old way of thinking about things was I'm a metal, or I'm a meathead, whatever you want to call it. I can throw weights around, so I'm going to teach other people to do the same thing. Yeah. But, you're thinking about it, and you're training your GAs, your interns, your students to think about things in an evidence-based approach.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And I think while still understanding, just the love of being in the weight room and that kind of, it's steal from Jeff Oliver and he did his TED talk on "Got the Greatest Job in the World." It's one thing I preach to my students is don't take yourself too seriously, because you got just a wonderful job. You're in a weight room, you're working with athletes, you're wearing shorts and t-shirts half the time, kind of thing. And but just be open to what's ever out there. And just love learning and love training yourself and love training others.
So I know you've been traveling a lot. You've been to China a couple of times. What's next for you?
Actually, I'm going back for a conference in Beijing. I'll be speaking in, I believe, October 11th through 16th.
Nice.
We got a good group going over there. Adam Fite's going to be going over there. I know Ron McKeefrey is going to be over there. Brett Bartholomew. So should have a really good conference over there.
Awesome. Well, I thank you. I know it's a little bit shorter than our normal because we start a little bit late, but you do have to wrap at 3:30. So yeah, absolutely. So thank you, Dr. Thompson. This is awesome. It's good talking to you again, and I'll wrap up everything else in the post talk. But thanks for being on.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me. It's been great.
No, absolutely. Thank you to Dr. Brian Thompson from Springfield College for being on the Coach Me Plus Applied Sports Science podcast. Some good stuff there, and to kind of hit home and hammer on that point of leadership being an important skill that needs to be addressed. We discuss this a lot where coaches are very technical or very skilled in data analytics or looking at information, but when it comes down to working inside of an organization and really acting as that leader that you need to really help put everything together and run the organization, it's something that doesn't come naturally to everybody and really needs to be reassessed and hit on and drilled home so that these guys walk out with those skills and actually put command on the floor and who they're working with within their organization. Anyway, sorry, a little bit of a rant there. So let's get into our next couple of podcasts, which will be coming out over this next month and, of course, the following months. And for those who have not subscribed to the newsletter, please go to CoachMePlus.com. Go top right corner, click subscribe, and you'll get sports science-y goodness inside your inbox. That's pretty much it for this week, and we look forward to our next guest and coming and talking back to you guys again. Thanks a lot.